How does IHL protect the environment in war? How does international humanitarian law protect the environment during armed conflict? This is a question that touches on the intersection of warfare and our natural world. Let's break it down in a clear and straightforward way. International humanitarian law, often referred to as IHL, plays a vital role in safeguarding the environment during conflicts. It does this by setting limits on how warfare can be conducted to prevent unnecessary environmental damage. The law recognizes the environment as a civilian object that deserves protection, just like people do. One key aspect of IHL is the requirement for military leaders to show due regard for the environment when planning operations. This means that when making decisions, they must consider the potential environmental impact of their actions. The principle of proportionality is essential here. Any military action taken must not cause environmental harm that is excessive compared to the military advantage gained. IHL explicitly prohibits the use of weapons or tactics that could lead to widespread, long-term, and severe damage to the environment. This is crucial because such damage can have devastating effects on civilian populations and their livelihoods, which IHL aims to protect. The Geneva Conventions and their additional protocols, which form the foundation of IHL, include provisions that indirectly protect the environment through the protection of civilians and civilian objects. For instance, attacks on essential infrastructure, like water supplies or agricultural areas, are restricted to prevent starvation and suffering among civilians. The International Committee of the Red Cross has developed guidelines that clarify these environmental protections. All parties involved in a conflict must respect these rules. Additionally, states are required to implement these rules domestically and prevent violations by their armed forces or other groups they control. IHL also addresses the illegal exploitation of natural resources during conflicts. It recognizes that such actions can fuel and prolong warfare. The principle of permanent sovereignty over natural resources protects states from unauthorized exploitation during hostilities. In practical terms, military commanders must consider environmental factors as part of their planning. They need to weigh the necessity and proportionality of their actions to avoid causing indiscriminate or excessive environmental harm. This includes avoiding actions that lead to deforestation, contamination of water sources, or destruction of agricultural land. While IHL focuses on the territory where conflicts occur, there is a growing awareness of the need to address environmental harm that crosses borders, such as pollution affecting neighboring states. However, these issues are less developed in IHL and often relying on principles from international environmental law. In summary, international humanitarian law protects the environment in war by treating it as a civilian object that requires protection. It prohibits methods of warfare that cause severe environmental damage and applies principles of necessity and proportionality to limit harm. It prevents illegal exploitation of resources during conflicts and obligates parties to respect and enforce environmental protections. By safeguarding the environment, IHL also protects civilians who depend on it for their survival.